We're going to talk about AV and video conferencing monitoring and managed services. Now, I love this topic because I spend a lot of time dealing with end users, and frankly, you can't manage what you can't see. Flying blind doesn't work anymore. But we go into enterprises and we still see everybody's flying blind. It's unfortunate, but it's reality. So today we'll talk about a variety of topics, but the first thing I want to point out is, how do we understand this market? What do we do? What's the source of our data and our insight? The first thing to point out here is we spend about 40% of our time supporting large enterprise clients, helping them with their strategies, their RFPs, helping them basically understand and fix their environment. The second thing we do is we do a huge number of briefings with vendors, channel partners, service providers, end users, the works. So we talk to people who are making the solutions, selling the solutions. The third thing we do is we run a test lab. Okay, and as far as I know, it's the only significant conferencing, collaboration, AV/UC test lab out there. And we have pretty much all the toys you saw on screen during the last couple of hours in our lab. So you want to know if toy A works with toy B? We've tested it. You want to know what integrates with Skype for Business or Exchange or Spark? We've tested it. We don't recommend it unless we've proven that it works. That's a big difference. And the last point here is we've done this before. I ran conferencing and collaboration for a monstrous global investment bank, and we used to do between 27 and 29,000 AV meetings a month. 1,000. It's a big enterprise. So we understand what it means to be in the trenches. So starting here, what is a managed service? There's a lot of confusion around this, and this is just about a third of the words I could have put up here. And as an analyst, as an advisor, this kind of confusion is a problem. Because frankly, we can't choose things if we don't understand them. There's a lot of words up there. So what is a managed service? People ask us, why do I care? Who cares what's in a managed service? Maybe it's irrelevant as long as I get what I want, but there's an important answer here. I can't compare solution A to solution B and make sure I'm getting the right experience unless I normalize it. I've got to know exactly what each one brings to the table. People don't do that work. So we're very specific about our definition of managed services. To us, marketing fluff and sales pressure aside, and there's a lot of that in this industry, a managed service is the outsourcing of your proactive day-to-day operations management of an area, of a business, of a technology, of a service, of a solution. There's a lot of underlined words there, but what this means is you're dumping the work on somebody else. And people don't understand that. It's not a package of everything somebody will sell you. It's taking the things that you need handled and outsourcing them. All right? Now, in the video conferencing and AV world, our definition here, and this is a Wainhouse research definition we've had for about 10 years now, is you need to be able to remotely monitor and manage the related technology. So that means you've got enterprise over there. I can manage the technology remotely without sending people on-prem, and I have a savvy help desk ready to help. You notice there's only what? Two things there, monitoring and help desk, not 35 like you saw on the word cloud. Now that doesn't mean the other things are not valuable. I'm loving it. You want to sell me content creation services? That's brilliant. But it has nothing to do with managing my environment. So that's something you need to understand. You need to focus on what's in the offering. So what's our recommendation? Okay, if I was on site with your company right now recommending something you do, is strip away the BS. Get down to what it really is you're buying. What that means is keep things simple. Do not allow any stuffing of offerings into the managed service for a lot of reasons. Okay? And it's important because simple is comparable, comparable is competitive. We must keep our vendors and our providers honest about what we're getting, what we expect, and what we're paying for. I've seen contracts that are 74 pages long for a managed service. 73 pages worth had nothing to do with a managed service. So we need to clean that. Now next, People ask all the time, can I just put people on site, have them manage my technology, and call it a managed service? The answer is, sort of. That's fine. They are managing your technology, and by the way, that may be valuable. If you need headcount, you need people, you need to keep them off of your books, but you need help, that might be incredibly valuable. But that's not the concept here. The concept here is not taking my people and dumping their work on somebody else who doesn't do it differently, better, more efficiently, faster, more cost effective. But people do it all the time, and that's fine. But that's old school. Old school is people. Old school is on site. Old school is local in room. We're doing a project right now for a very interesting pharmaceutical client. For half their meetings, they send technicians to the room to make sure the meeting's working. Their idea of a managed service was to get somebody else's technicians to go to the room and make sure the meeting's working. That's not a managed service. Okay? Staffing, that's sneakerware, that's not value. So what's the new school? The new school is where we have to put our heads today. The new school is get rid of the people where you can. All right? Because frankly, we need people to define it, to design it, to innovate it, to implement it, and hopefully to have our meetings. But we do not need people to run these technologies day in and day out. We don't need that. We can't afford it. They make too many mistakes, and it doesn't scale. So the new school is as remote as possible. Centralized tools, centralized people, and it's all about scale. That's the model you need to look for. And if we look, there are next-gen managed service providers who are doing just that. And it's interesting. When we put out an RFP for a managed service, I look very carefully at the responses, but not just for the numbers. I look for the mindset behind the response. Are they getting rid of cost and getting rid of people, or are they adding cost and adding people? Are they asking me to pay for a scheduling help desk, or are they integrating with my day-to-day tools? It's a big difference. So next-gen guys are pushing us away from the in-person and the people and the sneakerware and pushing us toward technology. That's a big change, and the reality is remote isn't enough. We have other clients who've been paying for a managed service, which was just a dedicated 25-person help desk in another country. That's not a managed service. That's just creative staffing. It should be automated, efficient, scalable, multi-client, configurable. These are the things we need, all right? So we need to seek providers that get it. You'll know within 5 minutes of talking to that provider if they get it or not. And it's not a numbers discussion, it's a value discussion. Right? Get it to me means less labor, more automation, and frankly, get it means sometimes they walk away. Good providers will see a bad situation and walk away because they can't add value there. They're not going to stuff it with other services. So, let's dispel a few myths here, and I hear these all the time from clients. The first one is, well, I hired MSP and it's not my problem anymore, and they'll just report to me every quarter how great it is, and I'll get promoted and I'll spend my summers in the Bahamas. Wonderful. Right? I'm in Florida, so Bahamas are close. That's not real. You can outsource the work, but the brain remains with you. The accountability remains with you. The innovation has to come at least from you partly. You need to make sure it's going in the right direction. Those little course corrections. Number two, this is a big one. Outsourcing to a provider does not make your problems magically go away. We always recommend to our clients, clean your shop and then consider outsourcing your shop. Okay? Because all you'd be doing is paying somebody else to clean up your old headaches, and you're going to pay a lot more than you would pay to do it yourself. Clean your shop, then potentially outsource your shop. Because outsourcing it first will take you years. You will spend millions of dollars, and in the end, it will not be what you necessarily wanted. We've been there. Number three, this is absolutely, positively not about dropping cost. People come to me all the time, they say, look, my boss says I gotta cut costs, so I'm gonna use a managed service provider. With their scale, it'll be cheaper. Nope. It may be, depending upon how you scope it, but they need to make money. They need to invest in toys, technology, processes. They need to invest in automation. We're paying them for their skills, not for their clock cycles and hours of people. So we're not in this to save money. It may cost more, but that's fine if we're getting the value we need. So getting rid of those myths, so why should I use an MSP? It is not to have better meetings, it is not to have more reliable meetings, it's not to save money. It's because it's not what you do. If you're a pharmaceutical, make drugs. Do it well. Make profit. Sell your stuff. If you're a financial, make money. Help me make money. But once a large organization starts creating their own empire around these technologies, we got to think if we're doing the right thing. Right? That's the way you think about it. Does it make sense to build your own little company inside, your own little profit engine, for something that you don't do for a living? It's happening all over the place. Now we should understand, this doesn't mean we're saying everyone's going to lose their job. That's not what this is about. And this is not a blanket statement that everybody should do this. But your people are valuable. Your people should be handling your clients internally. They should be innovating for ways to help your company make more money instead of running to rooms and dealing with those problems. That's low value work. So focus on what you do. That's important. Now, there are two types of MSPs. Right? The first we call the basic MSP. And what these guys do is they take your technology and simply remotely manage it. That's not a bad thing. So you've set up your environment. It's working reasonably well, maybe some tweaks. And they have experts in another location and a help desk who are managing it. Now, essentially, what they're setting up is a pane of glass for each client. There's a UI, there's a management system managing your technology. So you've effectively outsourced the work to people who know what they're doing and are doing it every single day. They're trained, their experience is what they do. Love it. Okay, it's a good model. Now, the benefit of this is it kind of feels like a dedicated service. The problem with that is it doesn't scale very well, and it tends to be expensive. Now, the other side are what we call the advanced guys. This is very interesting. These are companies that have invested in a tool set that allows them to support multiple clients in a centralized managed environment. Okay, so my 10-person help desk can be supporting 100 clients at once instead of 10. I'm not looking at your environment unless there's a problem or an issue because it's automated. So the advanced guys come in and they aggregate information, and it's more like a call center. But it's all about automation. I can tell you probably 95% of the MSPs out there are still basic. The typical integrator, and I'm not picking on the integrator, but the typical reseller integrator probably has some toys, understands how to remotely monitor TMS or resource manager or whatever, and bang, they're a provider. That's not bad, but it's not scale. It's not a growth direction. It's not going to improve vastly over time. It's headcount. So that's the difference. So what's happening in the market? I'm an analyst. I got to talk about market a little bit. Brent was very good at pointing out that forecasts are an opinion of what's coming based on the data we see around us, trends, insight, opinions, optimism, pessimism, right? GDP, all these great things. So here's some real data. We went out to a bunch of organizations, end user organizations, and we asked them, how are you supporting your video conferencing? And the reality is, about a quarter are using any kind of MSP, a managed service provider, to manage their environment. So we should beware. This is not everybody doing it. The hype is a little bit greater than the reality. Now that doesn't mean that's not value, all right? But why isn't the uptake bigger? Here's our view from dealing with all these end users. First of all, traditionally it's been very expensive. Brent mentioned how you charge because you can charge so much. That's been in this market too. It's changing, but it's been in this market. But the bigger is confusion. I talked about it before, service stuffing. All right? We're going to monitor your equipment and we are going to deal with catering for you. How wonderful. That's not a managed service. So confusion has stalled this market, and it keeps stalling this market. And the providers are trying to clean it up, but the customers are confused because they think a provider will do whatever they ask them to do and not what they do for a living. And that's a big difference. Go to people who know what they're doing, ask them to do what they do for a living. And that works very well. So if you look here, small enterprise is even less, only 11%. It's a small number. As you get smaller, costs are tighter. That's how it works. So moving on. Things are looking up. And this is important. Here's what's happening. Automation is taking its toll. And we're seeing some savvy providers come in. And what they're doing is they're automating, and they're taking a fair markup on top of their real costs. Years ago, it was $400 to manage a room. I know some vendors who do it for $40 or $50 now, with a better service, more automated, more scalable. I know some MSPs who are giving away some of their monitoring and managed services just to make sure you keep coming back for their other services. That's healthy. Now, that may not be healthy if you're an analyst trying to figure out the revenue coming into a market. But if you're an analyst looking at the value that customers receive from this, that's healthy. That's good business. So it's getting better in the conferencing managed services world. So what about AV? AV is a problem. It's always been a problem. It's taking a long time, and there's only one reason. Everybody's deployment is different. It's very basic. Video conferencing is easy. I know we're probably all scarred from video conferencing, but it's easy. There's maybe 10 different kinds of toys out there, and if I can manage them, I'm done. I've got 98% of the market. In AV, I've got hundreds of devices, lots of switchers, different toys, wiring configurations, Crestons and AMXs that I have to deal with. All right, I've got it all over the world. I've got old toys that aren't even IP capable. AV is a problem. Now, this is a problem that is disappearing very slowly. We're not going to see major movement to the needle here for years. But enterprises are standardizing. Enterprises are cleaning this up. And what happens is, once I standardize my environment, put 50 of the same type of room out there, put lots of huddle rooms out there with a simple, easy to deploy, easy to manage device, I can manage it like that. So simplicity is our friend here, and then we can manage it. So there's a light at the end of the tunnel here, and there are a couple of very interesting offerings now. Very interesting. For example, Scenero is a great example. Automated system testing. You go to sleep, in the morning you see a whole report that talks about how your system performed. All right? There are others that have boxes they put in the meeting room, a little AV box. You put it in your signal flow and it monitors everything for you, and it tells you, hey, Mike 3 is having a bad day. So we've got some light at the end of the tunnel, but right now, it's heavily promoted, but usually it's just a marquee for manual work and custom programming. So watch out. If somebody's going to sell you an AV managed service, make sure it's not just somebody creating a program on top of your program, because you're just paying for it. So I love this space and I love where it's going, but reality is that it's going slowly. So the question is, should you use one of these players? All right? Now, I don't sell managed services. I don't sell integration. I'm not a vendor. I don't make more or less money if you spend your money. My advice is, maybe yes, maybe no, but make sure it's because of your priorities. I believe managed service providers can do these things better than we can, typically, because it's what they do all day long. I believe if we can get a managed service provider in there, and if our systems are manageable and our expectations are reasonable, it's a good play. But maybe you don't want to do it, that's fine. It's a choice. But whatever you do, do not bury your head in the sand. This whole thing, we do a lot of rescue work, a lot of bounce back projects, where somebody spent $4 million trying to automate their environment, and all they did was destroy it. So go in slowly, ask the right questions, force a comparable RFP. This is very important. These are the 5 things I want all the managed providers to answer. Price it out for me. Explain how you do it. If they add anything beyond that, tell them to put it in the appendix. That's fine. But be very careful here. So summary, we are big fans of this. In the right environment, the right place with the right mindset, managed services makes perfect sense. If nothing else, we need to be able to see what's in our environment. If they've deployed the tools for monitoring, management, automation, help desk, trouble ticketing, all this great stuff, then we don't have to buy it. Perfect. But success comes from doing what you do and letting them do what they do. All right? And for most companies, not all, video, AV, UC, I'll pile them all in together. It's more of a distraction than a core business area. Right? Financials should work on finance. All right? But whatever you do, when it succeeds, it wins. Just understand, when it fails, it tanks miserably. Because you gave the keys to the kingdom to somebody else. Be careful before you do it. Consider your needs. Stabilize your environment. I can't stress this enough. Do not hand over a dirty environment. You'll just pay somebody else to try to dust it off. Clean it. Clean it first. Spend a little money, clean it, then hand it off. And then focus on mindset more than technology. Yeah, you've got this management system. That's fine. What is their mindset? Are they bringing people or pushing people out? Are they scaling or charging you for headcount? That's the difference. And whatever you do, take any timeline that you think is reasonable, double it, triple it, quadruple it for your management, because that's real. It takes a long time to get there. Now, there's a lot of topics we didn't hit that connect here. I'm going to invite people on Thursday. I'll be speaking Thursday morning on center stage on the main floor, huddle rooms, management systems, video systems, all this stuff. So please, if you have more questions that we didn't cover here, we can talk then. Anyway, tread carefully. That's my advice. Thank you.
Okay, do we have questions for Ira? You're sure? This is chance, free consultation. One up here, please.
Yeah, one up there.
Let's get our cubes. Turn around and toss this man. Let's see if he can catch it. Yahoo, go.
Okay, catcher. So would you be able to share with us who some of the innovators are today?
Sure. I mentioned Scenero as a great example. Viju is a very strong company, right? And they're in Europe. And they're a company that actually turns down business that seems too manual or that they can't automate and add value. Now, that may not be good for revenue, but it's very good for profit. They only do what they do. I love that. Pinnacle is another one. For those of you who follow the industry, they used to be the BCS Global team, now they're Pinnacle. These are the guys that created this little detection and sensor box that goes in line with your signals. All right? Those are some examples. And there's more coming. So innovation is happening here. Pleasure. Other questions? We have one in the back.
I got to make sure they've got a cube.
Wait, I got red here.
Who's got the red cube? Right there.
Red first.
In the USC market, in this UC market.
Please talk into the mic.
In this UC
Thank you.
market and the managed service side of it, there are a lot of ways to manage the service. What are you expecting from an MSP? You mentioned, I missed the first part of your presentation. Did you mention the 5 things you're looking for from the MSPs?
You missed it, I can't tell you. No, anyway, so the answer is we believe that a managed service provider really only has 2 core functions, which is monitoring and managing your technology remotely and giving you a remote help desk that knows how to fix the problems when they happen. That's the core. There are a lot of other things they can do, and I'm a big fan when your managed service provider bundles more things in. They know your environment, they know how to do it cost effectively, they know what you expect. They're already a vendor. That's nice and easy for the financials. But if you really strip away all the other stuff, that's what they need to do. Make sure your toys are running, rooms, infrastructure, and make sure that when something breaks, there's a really smart group of people answering the phone who say your company's name and solve it in a minute or 2. Other questions?
There's one here.
Sir.
You talked about automated testing. So it's something that runs reports of an overnight. Can you give some examples of what kind of information or what kind of things you're looking for?
Absolutely. So, network issues. 3 in the morning, some smart person in the comms closet took down your LAN in room 12. Guess what? You're SOL, you're down. If somebody tested that at 4 in the morning, you'd know it and you'd fix it. Somebody went in there at 5 o'clock last night, the cleaning people, and pulled one of the mics out, or worse than that, messed with the mic, and now it's adding noise to the mic channel. I hate it when they do that. You don't know it unless you're testing it. Your display has exploded. Darn. You're not going to know that until the 8 a.m. meeting unless you test it. There are a lot of things you can do when you have information in hand. Now the challenge here is that every room is built a little differently, so you need creative ways and tools that can monitor different systems. And Scenario is the one I mentioned. You can ask this guy about it. He knows a little. Anybody else? Questions, please. Here. Wow. 2 for 1.
One other example I've heard is login status. So we had a customer whose UC Kodak kept logging out of their account.
Yep.
And they wanted a way to manage, way to kind of test for that overnight. So that was something.
Sure. I mean, these providers can certainly go into user monitoring, desktop monitoring. They can get into testing for Skype for Business calls, SIP calls. There's a whole world of things, right? There are players that focus on AV, on video, on UC, on telephony. My suggestion is try to find a reasonable test program that tests while you sleep so that in the morning you don't have to deal with it. All right? It's sort of the next generation of the monitoring systems we used to see in the video conferencing world, or Fusion. Fusion looks if your toy's offline, but it's not going to know if that mic is making noise. Other questions, please.
All right, I've got one over. You got him? Okay.
You mentioned the timeline that you might think you needs to be doubled. So what is the typical timeline, if I can use that word, that you would see in onboarding a provider like this?
Great question. So I like to track from day 0, meaning my environment is clean. All right, to me, by the way, clean means my rooms are functional, my infrastructure is installed properly, my network is at least functional-ish. From there, I like to tell people 90 to 120 days for a very clean migration over to a managed service provider. Now, if it's a smaller environment, I'm moving 10 rooms over, maybe it's shorter. If it's 700 rooms, maybe it's longer. But you should take a few months, do it slowly and calmly. I like staged migrations. Don't move 140 rooms on Tuesday. Right? Move departments, buildings, teams, test it, learn, feedback loop, and keep deploying. But at least a quarter or 2. Other questions?
Last
Thank you.
chance. Ira will be across the hall for a few minutes in 303. If you have any more questions for him, talk to him over there. While we wrap up, I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And you have a few more